Good morning and welcome to the University of Maine. I'm Chef Rob Dumas and I'm joined here today by Dr. Colt Knight. And we are continuing our video series on farm to table fare. And this week's video is going to be for the Cattlemen's College, which is sponsored by the Maine Beef Producers Association. And we're going to be doing a really fun video today on grinding your own beef for burgers. And we're going to talk about the finer points of that, some of the food safety aspects, a little bit about smash burgers versus a formed burger patty. And at the end of all of this, Colt and I are going to be eating some delicious burgers. So we've got some incredible beef here, donated from Heartstone Farm in Charleston, Maine. And we've got two different cuts that we're going to work with today. So the workhorse of a burger is your chuck, right? And so the chuck's coming from the shoulder of the cow, heavily worked muscle, reasonable amount of fat, good flavor. This is the bulk of what a good burger blend is always going to be made with. Now, in addition to chuck, you've got several options in terms of what you can include with that. I am a big fan of brisket. Brisket's a little bit fattier. It's also got a beefier, richer flavor, but it's also a heavily worked muscle similar to chuck, so it's going to contribute a lot of juiciness and a lot of good flavor. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cube this meat so that it can fit through our grinder. In our effort to make this consumer friendly, we're going to be using a KitchenAid home grinder, and we're going to be using the meat grinder attachment that you can purchase from KitchenAid for I think it's about $50, so not terribly expensive. This is just the plastic one. They do make a stainless steel one that in my opinion is a little bit nicer and is going to stay a little bit colder. So this is what we'll be using today. If you don't have a KitchenAid, you can grind beef using a food processor, though that may not always be the very best in terms of creating a consistent grind. Okay, so let's dive in here and start cubing up some of this brisket and chuck for our homemade burger blend. Now, you might be wondering why go through the trouble if your grocery store already has, all of this product readily ground up for you. So there are some advantages to grinding your own. And some of the advantages that I find is it gives you a little bit more control over the meat that's going into it. A lot of times ground beef is just simply trim from all over the animal. So it can be, trimmed from a lot of different cuts. The other thing, and this is not so much the case with smaller beef processors here in Maine, but on a national level, ground beef can have meat from lots of different animals in it as well. So grinding your own gives you a little bit more control over the food safety aspects of it, because anytime you're talking about contamination, it's always coming from the outside of the meat, not the inside of the meat. So when meat's ground up, and when it's ground up from a lot of different animals, you have the potential for more contamination. When you're grinding your own beef, you can be working in a very sanitary environment, and you can have a lot of control over how clean it is and how clean your grind's going to be. What we're shooting for is to cube our meat into about 1-inch cubes, and we are going to take those cubes and we are going to spread them out on a tray in a single layer, and then we are going to pop them into the freezer, and we're going to get just a little bit of a freeze on them. And the reason that we want it to be just a little bit frozen is that's going to help a lot when we go to grind this in getting a good independent grind. Grind doesn't just have to be for burgers. You could grind for your own meatballs, you could grind for your own tacos or your own shepherd's pie, things like that. I'm going to get this chuck here cubed up, and you can see the chuck is quite a bit leaner than that brisket, which is good, because what we're shooting for in terms of a ultimate composition is something in the 80-20 range. Now, what does 80-20 mean? And you might have seen that even at the grocery store on your ground beef. What 80-20 means, or 90-10, is it's the meat to fat ratio. So for a burger, you want a fairly high fat ratio, and the reason that you want that is fat equals flavor. Fat also equals good browning. We're going to put this in the freezer, and we are also going to put our grinder in the freezer as well, because our goal here is to get everything as cold as possible before we start grinding. Okay, let's jump in and set up our grinder. So we've chilled down our grinder parts. We've got our KitchenAid set up. You always want to have a receptacle for your ground beef to fall into, and the name of the game here is keeping everything nice and cold. So I have a bowl sitting within a bowl full of ice. So we're going to start and we are going to go ahead and remove the cover cap on our KitchenAid machine. That can be done by loosening up that little pin right there. We're going to go ahead and mount our grinder body into the machine, and it will set right in, and then you can tighten down that to keep it in place. Next up is our auger, okay, and this will seat into the mixer. And then the next part is the blade. So the blade has a cutting surface. You always want the cutting surface to be flush against the die. So sometimes people put these things on backwards and nothing's cutting. You need it to be flush against the die. So this goes on first, and it has a little square opening on it, so it will line up very nicely there on that square. We are going to start with our coarser die, and then we may or may not go to our fine die, depending on how we go. This has a notch on the bottom, and there's a notch on the grinder assembly. And then we are going to put our locking ring on to hold this whole thing in place. All right, and then we've got our little tray here that we'll set up on top to load our beef into. And lastly, we have our plunger to push our beef down. So we're going to go ahead and give it a little test run here. We're going to just make sure that we're good and tight. Give it another little test run. Everything's turning. I'm going to go grab the beef, and we're going to jump in and start grinding. Our beef has been par frozen. And what we're looking for here is not for the beef to be totally solidly frozen, but just to be kind of firm. You know, like you can see, I can't quite squish that with my finger. And so we're going to go ahead and kick our grinder on. We're going to run it kind of on like a low speed here. And we'll start feeding the beef into the assembly here. And we'll use our plunger to push it down. And you'll start seeing our beef feeding out. And what we're looking for is a nice, clean, independent grind here. We want the beef to be, we don't want to see the fat smearing into the meat, which you can see we've already got a nice grind that we're starting with here. I'm going to increase the speed just a little bit. It's important that you've got small pieces. As you can see, it's a pretty small aperture, but we're getting a nice clean grind. We're getting good independent fat and meat. And so this process is going to take a little while with this kind of low throughput grinder that we've got here. But I'll just demonstrate one more time kind of what we're looking for in terms of a good clean grind, right? You want to see it kind of crumbling away and falling out of the grinder like that, so that we have a nice loose independent texture. You can see we've got nice ratio of fat to meat, and it's coming out very nicely. You definitely do not want to see any kind of smearing of your fat. You want to see those white chunks nice and kind of independent from the chunks of meat, okay? And so we're gonna grind here for just a little while, and we'll join back in just a minute once we get all this beef ground up, and we'll talk about forming up our burger patties for our ultimate smash burgers. We've got our beef has all been run through its initial grind now, and so we ran it through the larger diameter plate, and we've got a really nice grind on it. We've got a lot of independent texture. What we're going to do is we are going to blend this a little bit more to get a little bit more of that myosin going and that bind going so that our burgers hold together. We've got our medium grind here. I'm going to kick our grinder back on, and we're going to feed this through, and this is our second grind. And we're going to grind maybe only about a third of this ground beef back through, and that's just going to give our burgers a little bit finer, a little bit firmer texture, and they're going to hold up a little bit better. But you'll see that still, even with our second grind here, that we've still got nice independent structure to the fat and the meat. It's not all smeared together. And so that's going to be a really nice texture to blend with this to give our burgers a little bit firmer bite. Okay, so we've got our two beef grinds here. So we have our fine grind and our little bit coarser grind. And what we're going to do is we're going to blend these together now. And again, going back to what we've talked about a number of times here, it's a balancing act. We want to mix it enough that it holds together, but not so much that we develop a sausage-like bind. Well, I'm just blending that fine grind into that firm grind, and we've got a big bowl here of some really beautiful ground beef. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to form up a little bit of a ball here and see how it forms up and it holds. That's going to create a real nice burger. Sometimes what people will do is they'll mix it enough for it to stick to their hand when they lift their hand up like this, and that's a good indication of bind as well. And so we've got clean gloves on, I've got a landing zone, and I've got a scale. So what we're going to do is we're going to do two different things. We're going to do some smash burgers where we're going to have 2 thin patties per burger, and we're also going to make a couple of steak burgers or a thicker 6-ounce burger per patty. So what I'm shooting for my smash burgers is about a 2-ounce ball of meat, and so that looks about like that. We're going to work it just enough to get it to come together, right? Remember, the more we work it, the more we're going to increase that bind, and ultimately the tougher our burger is going to be. So, I'm going to form up just 2 more of these, and then not everybody wants to do a smash burger, right? Sometimes you want to do the burger on the grill kind of thing, and so we're going to make up a couple of little bit bigger like steak burgers as well. Okay, it's time for it to get delicious in here. So we've got our burgers that we formed up, and I've gone ahead and I've prepped out all of my toppings for our smash burgers because they go fast. When you put them on the grill, from the time that you start cooking them until they're done is like, you know, less than 2 minutes. So you really want to be well prepped. And so let's dive into this. We're going to take a couple of our little smash burger balls here. I've got a mixture of salt and pepper here. I like to call this pepper. Okay, we're going to go ahead, we're going to sprinkle that pepper on, and we're going to set these right on the grill. And then I'm going to take a little sheet of parchment here, or wax paper. I'm going to put it on top of these patties. 2 spatulas, okay? 1 to put on the burger, and 1 that you're going to use the butt end of to press that burger nice and thin. Now the goal here is to get it almost translucent on that grill. And what that's going to allow to have happen is that burger is going to get those crispy, lacy edges. It's going to get incredibly brown. I'm going to take that wax paper right off. Okay, peel it right off of this one too. And you can see that these burgers are just as thin as can be on this griddle. I'm going to hit them with just a little bit more pepper on this side, but you got to be cautious not to over salt these because they are so thin, okay? Now, I'm going to toss my glove here. I'm going to go ahead and go on to one of these buns. We're just going to make one of these to start, and then we'll cook the other one off camera, okay? Toss this glove too. We're going to go right on to the bun with a little bit of this lovely thin white onion, okay? Some people might call it toppings, but since we're going on the bottom, we'll call them bottomings, all right? And then we're going to put on a little bit of these thinly sliced dill pickles here. A little bit of acidity is really nice with the burger. Okay, so we got that on there. Now our burgers are starting to cook all the way through. You can see that the color is changing as the beef is getting cooked, and you can see that they're kind of falling apart a little bit, but that's what we're going for. We want them to be kind of crumbly, and we're going to use that American cheese like our glue to kind of hold everything back together. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this one over. Beautifully golden brown. I'm going to flip this one over too. Beautifully golden brown. You know, the crumbliness, don't be afraid. Once it goes with that American cheese, it's all going to be just fine. Okay? I'll put that slice of cheese right on there. I'll put that slice of cheese right on there. I'm going to use both my spatulas to make sure that I get this picked up real nice. Okay? Go ahead and offload that right onto my bun. I'm going to pick up my second one here. I'm going to bring it over. We're going to offload it right onto that bun. And that, my friends, is our ultimate smash burger. The juices just running out of it. It's hard to beat something as juicy and delicious as that. So we're going to set that aside. Why not? Let's cut it in half. We'll give it a try. And then we'll jump into making our steak burger next. So looking at the anatomy of that, fully cooked, incredibly juicy, you know, just dripping all over my hands. You can't get a better burger than that anywhere in town. So we'll give this one a try. Well, I will tell you, the smash burgers, super delicious. Let's take our steak burgers now, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get going. So we've got our 6-ounce patties here. We're going to bring them over to our seasoning station here, and we're going to go ahead and season these also with our pepper, okay? So our salt and fresh cracked black pepper. We got our griddle preheated, right? It's lightly smoking, which is exactly what you want to see. And we are going to go ahead and set our burgers on. And unlike our smash burgers, we're not going to really beat on these. We want to set them on, and we want to let them more or less kind of keep their shape. Maybe just a little bit of a touch to make sure that you've got good grill contact. But you don't want to really be cranking on these. So the smash burgers, we were trying to smush them down because our goal was to create that maximum contact so that we got that brown, crusty, crunchy surface. So let's give this a flip. Oh my goodness, that thing is stunning. I'm going to go ahead and take a minute. I'm going to set up my buns while those are cooking. So we have our special sauce, right? Our special sauce is it's basically a variation on Thousand Island. So we've got mayonnaise, ketchup, pickles, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of Dijon mustard, and just a little bit of vinegar. And that's going to give us that tangy, sweet dressing for the burger. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put just our pickles on the bottom here. And I'm going to do something just a little bit different with my steakhouse burger because I like to let my white onions kind of get steamed a little bit under my cheese when I'm cooking that. So I got these beautiful, this is a sweet onion, a Vidalia or something like that would be a great option. We're just going to pile that right on our burger. I'm going to go on with a nice big hunk of this Cabot cheddar cheese. Why not? We'll go on with 2, why not? I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set my bacon right across the top of my cheese right here. And then the last thing that's going to go on this is we're going to put, we've got green leaf lettuce here. And I've taken the kind of coarse rib out of the green leaf and I've made like a lovely little round with it. We're going to set that on our top bun. Set this one up too, so it's got its nice little bit of green leaf. Shredded iceberg is also a really nice touch. Some people call it shreddis. I do really like that for a burger as well. But the one key thing here is that every vegetable that you put on here needs to be sliced thin, right? You definitely don't want to have a real thick, gnarly piece of tomato that when you go to bite it, your burger goes squirting out the other end, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say that this burger is going to be beautifully medium. So I'm going to lift that right off the grill. I'm going to set it on my bun here. And there's those onions that have kind of been cooking in that beef fat. We're not going to let those, no onion left behind. All right, I'm going to bring that over. We're going to set it right on there. I'm going to take our beautiful bun here that we've toasted in butter and that we've topped up with that gorgeous, tomato, lettuce. That's a steak burger right there, my friends. So you won't find a better burger than that. Okay, so we got our steak burgers here. We let them rest for just a minute, and we're going to go ahead and cut these in half so you can get a nice shot of what the inside of this burger looks like, and just as juicy and delicious as you could hope for. It's like medium well, but that's okay. It's still going to be juicy and delicious, absolutely wonderful. And then, because we wanted to kind of compare, right, see who was better, we made another smash burger, and we've got this lovely guy right here. I'm going to cut it in half and we'll do a little comparison. Let's dive in. Let's try this steak burger.
This video was brought to you by the University of Maine Cooperative Extension Grazing Behavior Lab and the Dr. Matthew Hyland's pilot plant. We would also like to thank the Maine Beef Producers Association for sponsoring this video during the Cattlemen's College, and for Heartstone Farm in Charleston, Maine for donating the lovely beef.
All right, so let's jump in and talk about setting up our grinder.
You want to do it again without the all right?
No, I'm okay with some all right. I'll wait to cut this one in half if you want me to cut it on film.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Should I talk and stuff, or you want to do this as like a B-roll kind of thing?
I need a remote
That would be nice.
that will start both of them at the exact same time.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Because we wanted to kind of compare, right? See who was better. We made another smash burger, and we've got this lovely guy right here.